As we continue journeying through the book of Job, today's reading are in chapters 27, 28, and 29, which bring us into sacred silence. It's a shift, a stillness, and it speaks volumes. So let's take a deep breath together, center our hearts, and see what God has for us today. Amen. Hello, my name is Maureen, and if you haven't guessed already, I'm passionate about the word hand crochet. Humility and Hope documents my chronological Bible reading and prayer journey as I crochet a blanket based on the daily prayer theme. In Job 27, Job addresses all his so-called comforters, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. His tone is firm and unwavering. He declares his innocence and clings to his integrity, even in the face of deep loss and misunderstanding. His message: I will never concede that you are right. I will defend my integrity until I die. I will maintain my innocence without wavering. My conscience is clear for as long as I live. But then comes something startling. Job begins to warn them, to warn his friends. In verses 11 onward, Job essentially says, let me teach you what you've tried to teach me. It's a chilling turn. His friends had described God's judgment on the wicked, words that were suspiciously echoed towards Job's own sufferings. But now Job takes those same images and turns them around, not to defend himself, but to warn them. In their pride, in their hostility, in accusing a man who belongs to God, they have placed themselves in danger of the very judgment they were so confidently preaching. And it's a sobering thought for us as Christians. It echoes what Paul says in 2 Timothy, where he urges gentleness towards opponents. Gently instruct those who oppose the truth. Perhaps God will change these people's hearts, and they will learn the truth. Then they will come to their senses and escape from the devil's trap, for they have been held captive by him to do whatever he wants. Gently instruct those who oppose the truth. You hear? There's a deep lesson here. When we weaponize truth to attack others, we may be walking straight into the judgment we claim to warn them about. But even here, Job's tone is more cautious than condemnation. He's sounding an alarm. Don't mistake your certainty for righteousness. Again, I'm reminded by the dream Eliphaz had, by the spirit that visited him. And then it became certainty, and he used it as a weapon against Job. So be careful, friends. Even as we are correcting others, let's do it from a point of love, not judgment. As we learned going through chapters 23 to 26, it's not in our place to judge. God is the one who judges. So please, friends, take heed to what Job warns us about and what Paul emphasizes. Then, in chapter 28, the heat of debate gives way to quiet, almost poetic reflection. Job stops talking to people and begins pondering about something far deeper: wisdom. He describes how people mine the earth for silver and gold, searching for the deepest caverns, but then asks, but do people know where to find wisdom? And the answer is very clear. God alone understands the way to wisdom. He knows where it can be found, for he looks throughout the whole earth and sees everything under the heavens. Wisdom, Job says, is not something we can dig up like treasure. It's not earned by effort or intellect. It is rooted in relationship. And this is what he says to all humanity. The fear of the Lord is true wisdom. To forsake evil is real understanding. And in chapter 29, Job's reflection takes a tender turn. He remembers the day when the friendship of God was felt in his home. Not just the blessings of success, but God's presence. He recalls a life of purpose, serving the poor, advocating for the vulnerable, and walking in dignity. Have you ever gone through such a season where words just stop coming, where the loudness of suffering gives way to the quiet ache, a silence that isn't empty, but pregnant with deeper things? Job's journey mirrors that shift. He moves from debate to depth, from grief to longing, from answers to awe. And friends, that's where wisdom begins. Not when we have clarity, but when we seek God himself. Again, just when we said when you're walking through chapters 23 to 26. The way Job's journey has shifted from his own suffering, from arguing with his friends, to actually being focused on God and who he is, on his sovereignty. Today we are reminded that true protection isn't in avoiding pain. It's in clinging to God in the midst of it. When Job remembers the friendship of God, he is longing for the one who walked with him, not just the gifts of God, but the giver himself. And how do we walk in that wisdom? Job tells us the fear of the Lord is true wisdom. To forsake evil is real understanding. To forsake evil means to trust that God's way, though harder at times, and let's be honest, most times, it's safer for our souls. It means saying no to shortcuts, to bitterness, to vengeance, and yes to God's refining hand. It's wisdom with roots, wisdom that protects. And I'm telling you, it's not easy. It is not easy. So today, as you crochet, I chose green. Green for protection. And I pray that the Lord will teach us to fear Him. Not in dread, but in awe. Help us, Lord, to forsake evil. Not just out of duty, but because you long for the wisdom that draws us nearer to you, Lord. Protect our hearts from pride. Protect the kids' hearts from pride, God. From rashness and from hopelessness. May your friendship be our greatest treasure, Lord. Amen. So when you see green on your blanket, let it remind you that God's wisdom protects. His presence guards, and even in the silence, He's shaping something sacred. As Proverbs 2 chapter 7 says, He grants a treasure of common sense to the honest. He is a shield to those who walk with integrity. Let Him be your shield. Walk in that integrity. Thank you for sitting with me in the quiet beauty of Job's reflections today. If this spoke to your heart, I'd love for you to share with someone who might be longing for God's friendship again. And as always, keep your hands busy and your heart soft. Don't harden your hearts, as in the rebellion, because God is always ready to place something in there. I'll see you in the next one, friends. And until then, stay rooted in hope and clothed in wisdom. And if you haven't, I recommend you watch this next.